chased validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything between. Um, Man, it was a long 48 hours, I gotta tell you. I've been grinding since the last time we did the show. So, we got a lot of stuff going on. We got to set everything up for the rest of the next week. It looks like we're starting to set it up in a way where it's like, well, the next 2 or 3 weeks will be done at the same time so that you guys will have a better opportunity to hit that like and subscribe button and follow the channel. So every couple of days, I try to put up the next 2 or 3 days worth of shows. So probably what I'll do is between tonight and tomorrow is get up a few more because I've got all my Saturdays for the next few weeks, and then I'll have, you know, so forth Sundays and so forth and so forth. So you guys can see exactly what's gonna be coming, and give you guys the opportunity to hit that like and subscribe button, and also hit that notification bell to be preemptively prepared for what's about to happen. We're going to be covering a lot of different things as time progresses. As we understand it, the government's still shut down. We're going to be seeing how long that's going to last as we watch the stock market plummet, while the stock market isn't, while the government isn't functioning, and we will then hopefully see that bounce back. So right now, if you've got the capabilities to do so, buy in, buy in, buy in. Um, in our dividend rotation strategy, we just released global net lease, where we'll able to collect off of that, and we're going to be diving into yet another one coming soon, and we will be able to see exactly how much uh, gain we were able to make over the year come June. So we want to make sure that we encourage you guys to stay on top of the dividend rotation strategy and stay on top of all of our um, trades over the next few months so that we can see exactly where we're going to be putting our money and putting our money to good use. So in the meantime, we're going to be talking about some new strategies like today, saving 3 times your salary by 40 years old in order to end up retiring early. Uh, all of these strategies that we're talking about are ways to end up putting yourself in a position where you can try to do a 20-year retirement plan that could allow you to retire early where you're not 70 and 80 years old, 100 years old, still trying to work somewhere to make extra money to make ends meet, or picking up a second job after you've gotten all of your disability benefits when you should have already retired, but you're still working some kind of side hustle to bring in some extra capital to cover the difference. Also, this helps you with being able to better plan your life so that you don't have to be in those situations where you're partnering up with individuals that aren't a good fit for you simply because they are a financial fit for you. This helps for the fellas that are looking for a good partner, or even the ladies that are looking for a stable relationship that isn't devolved from chaos, uh, because there's toxicity on both sides of the fence. So it's good to think about other ways to go about doing things. And that's one of the reasons why we're going to be talking about today's topic of what ways can be utilized to save and invest and grow your wealth faster than just simply sitting on your money or throwing it into a bank. Um, I thought this was a pretty good topic to come across because we're going to be talking about some other things that are going to be directly related to it. So I wanted to figure that if I cover it now, then I can tell you I told you so later. Now, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we typically talk about financial improvements, and Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we talk about personal life improvements. And sometimes, and they are entwined with one another. What you do in your financial life sets the par for what you're capable of doing in your personal life, and what you allow to happen in your personal life directly impacts your capability to function in your business life. So sometimes, like today's show, where we're going to be talking about financial changes, it's financial changes in your personal life that directly impacts your personal life, because one of the hardest things that we have in our relationships these days is the lack of availability of time that negatively impacts our relationships. And whether it's the relationships with our loved ones, like our wife or our husband, or if it's the lack of relationship with our children, um, the fact is that a lot of the times, especially the lower income families, spend more time working than they spend interacting with their families because they can't afford to take time off from work. So this is a good way to work out something different, because if you can figure out a way to get stuff done and then figure out a way to stack money and make money for yourself, if you put in a 15, 20-year process, once you reach the end of this, you would have more than enough to do what you needed to do, and you would not have to worry about struggling over it. So, um, one more thing is that Sundays is our questions and comments from the fans. So if you guys, this is a highly interactive podcast. So special shout out to Steven off of Twitter X, Danny Stefan off of Twitch, Michael's watching the comment section here on YouTube, and Mr. Pibbs, who's kind of bouncing back and forth between Twitter and YouTube, showing support for the channel. So we greatly appreciate you guys for doing what you do. And actually, we have one of the videos on the channel that just broke 250,000. So I greatly appreciate all of the support from India and Bangladesh on that particular video, because y'all were doing a good job of watching that video, and the video is still running strong. It's still trending. Um, but it's out there, and I this is the first time I've experienced that on my channel. So I'm excited to see that, and I'm hoping that the rest of the videos that we're going to be putting up are going to be having the same level of explosion. So we just wanted to really teeter on how uh, you guys are very important for the channel. So with that being said, we have reaction buttons for the live show, and if you guys take advantage of those reaction buttons, you can show support towards the show, and it costs you no money. I mean, yeah, you're going to be putting a lot of cardio in for your thumbs, but you'll be showing support for a channel that provides you with real time information that is fact checked information that you guys can go back and do your research on and have better opportunities to make changes and improve your lives. And some stuff that's public knowledge that you just didn't think to look for, that you didn't know existed, and it aids you in ways that you never knew. And one of the best things to have about this podcast is that it is a life altering style of podcast. So hopefully you guys can take advantage of that. And one of the first ways we're going to do is we're going to talk about this age old myth, this age old story that you guys have been told in the past, that if you save 15% of your income, max out your 401k, and maybe, just maybe, you can retire at 67. I want to touch on that today. But what if I told you guys that that particular um, information is a big lie, a lie of omission, designed to keep you on a treadmill for 40 years. A lot like a lot of individuals that be trying to feed you that story about, oh yeah, get you a life insurance policy and it'll help you. It won't do squat for you, bro. If you get $1 million life insurance policy, it is good to have for the next generation. When you pass, they will get whatever's there and they'll split it between them. But for you personally, a life insurance policy doesn't do squat for you. If you have an elderly person in your life that you're willing to pay for the insurance policy on, and that individual pass, when that individual pass, you can get whatever they had on their policy, and that benefits you. But beyond that, the older you get, the higher the premiums are, the more they're taking out of your investment. Where towards the end, if you did invest 100% of the cost of the policy, you're just getting back all your money. But when you start talking about what some of the wealthy leverage that to grab a bunch of assets where the assets are owned, liquidate the policy. When they pass, the assets pass on to the next generation, and then the next generation don't got to worry about the life insurance policy because whatever could have been gotten off of the policy was acquired. Not too many people think about that. Um, there are a lot of other things that are out there, and we're going to be covering them. If you're on this treadmill 40 years down the line thinking, oh, yeah, everything is going to be perfect if I only do a little bit at a time, and by saving over time, that I can end up building enough wealth where I can quit my job and have money to live off of for the remainder of my life. You first have to remember the lifespan of humans right now, but this slow building of a nest egg that might not ever be enough due to inflation and the cost of living is some of the things that people that do save and invest strive for but never achieve because of the misconception of how it's going to be utilized down the line. Say, for example, the three times the salary rule, the 4% rule. This entire playbook is a scenic route to an uncertain future. It's a system made for the masses, a one size fit all plan that just doesn't hold up against soaring inflation, stagnant wages, and the fact that we're all living a lot longer than we used to live when this stuff was first designed. The wealthy know this. While you're carefully following the traditional advice, they're playing a completely different game. They have a playbook that doesn't rely on patiently waiting for the stock market to do its thing. It's a system built on speed, control, and creating income streams. It's how they manage to achieve financial freedom in their 40s or even their 30s, while most people are just hoping to hit a savings goal for their age bracket. The rest of us are actually managing to strike those goals. In tonight's show, we're not just going to poke holes in the old way. We're going to expose its fundamental flaws, and we're going to be pulling back yet another curtain on the system the rich actually use to fast track their wealth and retire on their own terms. This isn't about pinching a few more pennies or finding a slightly better mutual fund. This is about a radical change in strategy. So, if you've ever felt stuck in your 9 to 5, wondering if there's a faster way out, you got to stick around because we're about to rewrite the rules. Now, before we build a new system, we have to tear down the old one. So, you need to understand the why that the advice you've been given for decades is no longer enough. It's not that your financial advisor is out to get you. It's that the game has changed, but the rule book is stuck in the past. So let's start with the most famous benchmarks of all, the 3 times the salary rule. Financial companies like Fidelity have pushed these age based goals for years. Have 1 times your salary saved by 30, 3 times by 40, and 6 times by 50, and finally 10 times by age 67. On the surface, it seems logical. It gives you a clear target if you make 80,000 a year. Because if you did, then you should have 240,000 saved by the age of 40. But here's the problem. This rule is dangerously oversimplified. It gives a false sense of security to some and creates pointless panic in others. Think about it. The rule is based on your income, not your expenses. If you are a high earner in a expensive city, you might hit 3 times your salary and still be unprepared if your lifestyle costs a fortune. So this method works. If you were making 80,000 a year and you lived in Wyoming, be fucking fantastic. If you're making 80,000 a year and you live in New York or California, not only would you be struggling, but you would not likely be able to save that 240,000. On the flip side, though, if you're a disciplined saver with a frugal lifestyle, you might be perfectly fine with only 2 times your salary because you won't need as much in retirement, especially if you made that extra money in a more expensive environment and then relocated to a cheaper environment in order to live off of the retirement. If you were able to survive off of more when your costs are less, that money will stretch even further. The rule completely ignores your savings rates and the most important lever that you can pull. So, when we think about this, we think about how it also assumes a perfect linear career path. No layoffs, furlough, no unpaid leave, no injuries, car accidents to take you out of work, no family emergencies, no downsizing, no career swaps. And then what about the person who takes a pay cut for a dream job where you're doing what you love now, but you're getting paid less? They don't think about any of those. The entrepreneurs, with a fluctuating income. You dealing with a startup where the largest majority of the first few years of your startup is being reinvested back into the business. The parent who takes 5 years off to raise kids. This rule makes them feel like failures when the reality is just more complicated than that. And the most dangerous part, it's just a checkpoint in a 40-year marathon. Just a checkpoint. It's not even a method or an ideology of success. It is just if you've got this check mark, you can consider yourself allegedly safe. Hitting three times your salary at 40 just means that on a pace that you're on right now, you could keep saving aggressively for another 27 years and reach that 10 times your target. Doesn't mean that you're living good, but if you're doing that for another 27 years from 40, you're 67. But the three times salary rule is just the appetizer. The main course of bad advice is its partner, the 4% rule. Now, this rule, created by financial planner William Bengen in 1994, has been treated as gospel for 30 years. The idea was simple back in the day that you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio in your first year of retirement, adjust for inflation each year, and you'll likely have enough money for 30 years. So with $1 million in the bank, you can take out 40,000 a year, roughly. All right. It was a great piece of research for its time, but 1994 was a different world. The 4% rule was tested with historical data from a period with much higher bond yields. Relying on it today is like using a map from the 90s to navigate a city in 2025. It's not going to work for you. The streets have changed. First, we're living longer. So the rule was designed for a 30-year retirement. If you are retiring at 65, that takes you to 95. But what if you want to retire at 45? Your retirement could easily last 50 years, and the math just doesn't hold up in that scenario. Because if you're supposed to be able to hold down a 30-year retirement plan at 45 instead of 65, that would put you at 75, and your money would be gone. And you might likely have another 10 to 15 more years after you've run out of money. Now, second, market returns have changed. Look at what's happened here in 2025. We've seen the market continuously decline in the first 2 weeks of October. The original study assumed a 50-50 portfolio of stocks and bonds, usually why they go together. And then the trio of stocks, bonds, and real estate, and then throwing in cryptocurrency and precious metals and stuff, builds a all around portfolio. But today, with lower bond yields, you're forced to either take on more risk in the stock market or cryptocurrency or accept lower returns, both of which can put the 4% rule on shaky ground. In fact, many experts and institutions like Morningstar now suggest a safe withdrawal rate is closer to 3.7% or even lower. On a $1 million portfolio, that's a drop from $40,000 a year to $37,000 a year. And to be frank, with the way things are going with the current economy, you need to be trying to get yourself closer to a $30,000 a year expense limit if you're going to be trying to follow some of these methods. That's a huge life change over a few decades. Even Bill Bengen himself has updated his thinking, now suggesting a rate closer to 4.7 or even 5%. But that assumes a more complex, diversified portfolio than the original rule, because the simple statistic of 4% is no longer a reliable anchor. Finally, let's start talking about that 401k. We were told to max it out and grab the employee match option if there is one. It's good advice, but it's incomplete. Relying only on a 401k is like trying to build a house with just a hammer, nothing else. You need the whole toolbox. The 401k is a system designed for compliance, not speed. It has strict contribution limits, which may not be enough for someone trying to get financially free fast. 2025, if you're already in your 40s and you're trying to retire at 65, you're looking at 20 to 25 years, and that is the the quickest way possible. That's what you're trying to get. And with limits for your 401k at 23,500 a year that you can put in, it locks your money away until you're 59 and a half. So you're damn near 60 before they let your money go, hitting you with penalties if you try to even touch it early. The exact opposite of early retirement. And while the Secure 2.0 Act is adding helpful new rules like a larger catch up contribution for those aged 60 to 63 starting in 2025, the core limitations still remain. Worst of all, it dramatically limits your investment choices. Most plans offer a small menu of mutual funds. You can invest in the assets and the wealth that the wealthy people use to get rich. Direct real estate, private businesses, or private debt. Those are ways that you can make a substantial quantity of money. And nobody's looking into that. You're stuck playing in the minor leagues while they're in the major leagues. So let's be real. The traditional path is slow and very restrictive. It asks you to trade 40 years of your life for a future that's far from guaranteed. And this is probably one of the biggest reasons why relationships struggle, because men are driven to hit that financial freedom, to work until they drop or reach that goal of retirement. And their partners are not always on the same page. 40 years of working before you can call yourself hoping that you can stop with a partner that's hoping that you will take time out now. You will have lost out on a large majority of your life, of your marriage, of your kids' childhood, especially if y'all got together and within the first 5 years or 10 years had kids and you're working another 30 years before you retire. Your kids are grown, where their entire childhood you were always on the grind at the job. It's a system that might get you across the finish line eventually, but you'll be old as fuck, tired, and you'll have sacrificed your most valuable asset, which is your time. So if the old rules are broken, what do the rich actually do? Well, this is the pivot. This is where we stop playing their game and start learning their strategies. And here's the secret. So it's going to be simple, almost insulting for some people. The wealthy don't just save more, they invest differently. They don't see their day jobs as their main source of wealth. They see it as seed money, capital to buy, and build an income producing asset or multiple income producing assets. While the average person obsesses over their salary, the wealthy focus on their balance sheet. They're not just climbing the corporate ladder, they're building a financial fortress brick by brick. They've rejected the passive hope and pray strategy of stuffing all your money into a 401k, and they take an active role. They understand that the fastest way to wealth isn't just by saving more, but by increasing the velocity of their money, making every dollar work harder for them. So their strategy is built on three pillars. And these pillars are the pillars of early retirement, the blueprint that lets them escape the rat race decades ahead of schedule. And the first one has nothing to do with stocks or even real estate. It's a mindset. The first pillar is the foundational shift in thinking behind this entire strategy. It's known as the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. Now, when people hear retire early, they picture someone quitting their job at 35 to sit on a bench. That's a caricature. He said, I want freedom. Look at Michael. He made it. Look, I almost there, buddy. I almost there. I still got to work from the computer, but I be able to work less than I used to work. We're looking at different ways, but making money differently now is way better because being able to still work on my 20-year plan and be able to digitally work off of this computer. I can fly to any country I want to fly to and still be able to do my job and still be able to make good money and still be able to hold my standard of living down. And with the quantity of capital that I bring in, I can easily get a digital nomad or working visa in any country or most countries around the world that accept US visas and ultimately put in a 12-month stint there and then come back. At its heart, a fire isn't about being lazy. It's about that freedom that Michael claims that he's got. It's about getting to the point where work is a choice, not a command. So when you're making more money than you need and you're still going to work, you're going to work because you want to. You're going to work because you want to keep building that wealth. But when you're going to work now, you're not necessarily going to work and putting in double overtime because you have to. You're going to work and putting in regular time or semi part time. Instead of doing 65 hours a week, you might be doing 30, and the rest of the time your money's making money for you. If you're doing 3 10-hour days a week or uh I don't know, 4 8-hour days a week where you're covering like 32, and then you've got 3 days off a week, you're effectively living a better lifestyle than the individual that works every day of the week and only has one or less than 1 day off every 7 days. Michael says mindsets. I didn't retire, I graduated. Using the word retired sounds like being put out to pasture. Therefore, I say I graduated. 7 days off a week. Well, retired is the professional way of saying, fuck this job, I quit. Like Cartman, screw you guys, I'm going home, throwing up those middle fingers. But, you can say that you graduated out of the workforce, but you found a way to stop. You're not necessarily a quitter like Alcoholics Anonymous, but you don't have to go back to work anymore. Your life has elevated a little bit because you have more free time, but you are essentially put out to pasture because at your current age, you're not making it back into the workforce by choice. He said, "Don't retire. You'll have too much time on your hands." Shit, me. You know how much sleep I would get if I did not have an alarm clock reminding me that I had to come to this podcast every day. I actually have between two cell phones, 8 alarm clocks that frequently ring every day. He said, no sleep at all? Nah, I would be sleeping 10 hours a day. I would be sleeping 10 hours a day. And then the other 14 hours a day, I'd be bored as fuck. So out of that 10 hours, I put 6 hours towards this podcast, which means I would have 4 more hours to go enjoy life. It's about owning your own time. That's what retirement is about. The only resource that you cannot get more of. So, this movement reframes your relationship with money. You stop seeing it as something to buy stuff and start seeing it as a tool to buy back your future. You're trying to make your later greater. The core idea of the fire movement is shockingly simple and mathematically true. Your savings rate is more important than your rate of return. For decades, we've obsessed over a few extra percentage points of investment return. But the fire community realized that what truly sets the speed of your journey is the gap between what you earned and what you spend. He says, sell everything. Well, you could. You could sell everything in an estate sale so that Michael can buy it all up and then resell it for a profit. You could stop wasting money on unnecessary things so that you have more money going around. You could relocate to a cheaper area and reduce the cost of your standard of living to spread your money a lot further. You could be in a relationship with somebody who's not financially wasteful so that the two of you can stack your money. But then guess what? I've been telling y'all that for years because before we get into this, I've told you guys plenty of times that two people on a $45,000 a year income living a 35, $40,000 a year lifestyle could pool their money together and put more than $40,000 a year away in a stock and make themselves millionaires inside of 10 years. You don't got to do it for 40 years. If you had 55 or 60,000 a year coming in, and when you start thinking about the kind of jobs right now that are paying $55,000 a year, you're talking about every minimum wage job, teachers, some government workers, pulling off everybody in Walmart, pulling off $55,000 a year jobs, $60,000 a year jobs. And if two of those people moved into the same house, they don't even have to be in a romantic relationship. They could just move into the same house and reduce the cost of living and the difference. They could put away $1 million worth of investments in 10 years. If they stayed on that track in 20 years, they would have multi-million-dollar positions. If they were staying on that path for 30 years, they would have $3 to $5 million in the bank because you're putting away 40 grand a year and you're compounding in interest. Now, consider that and then consider why the average American insists on living at more than 90% of the standard of living. If you're not putting away the largest majority of your income, you're not able to save for your future. Michael says, solution: live less than your means and buy land, then a duplex, and keep rolling it over. They can pay cash then. You're true. That is true. You can buy land and lease it out. You can uh, buy duplexes. You could buy quadruplexes, live in one unit, rent out the rest of them. Your standard of living is free, and the difference between your cost of living and the cost of maintaining the property is your total profit. And you can leverage the property to get more properties. Is exactly right. Individuals that end up wealthy do the same thing because when you roll over those properties, you can move out of that duplex, that fourplex, that quadruplex. You can move out of that into either a larger facility, whether it's moving it into a different apartment on a larger complex that you're trying to grow, or moving out of an apartment into a house situation. Because I like it when you think like a millionaire. One of the other things that I think about is in certain states in Central America, Central United States, you can buy what is considered homestead properties that are like 10, 20 acres of property. You could, after you bought that property, you could rezone and then build a bunch of houses on the land that you bought, where you might have bought that house with the land for less than $500,000. You can then build an apartment complex behind your house, and then all your tenants live on your backyard. And you could turn that into exceptionally large. Because if you had 5 acres and out of that 5 acres, you turn 2 acres into a housing facility, you still got 3 acres of backyard or 2 acres of backyard and a significantly large profit in your backyard where your mortgage is paid for, all your vehicles and everything is paid for, and you can leverage the value of the land to go and buy more land and do it again. But let's say, for example, if you save 10% of your income, which is what most people call themselves being a financially successful individual, is saving 10% of your income. Some people try to do it off of five. But if you did 10, it would take you 9 years of work to save for 1 year of living expenses, right? So if you worked for 36 years, you would have saved enough money at 10% of your income to cover 4 years of your living expenses at that same income level. So it doesn't matter what your income is. If you have a $50,000 a year lifestyle, your $50,000 a year income, and you save 10% of that, you'd be saving $5,000, and you save that $5,000 times 9 years, you're at $45,000. Sprinkle a little interest on that, and you're at $50,000, which means that 9 years you've covered 1 year's worth of living expenses. You do the same thing with $30,000. If you would make a $30,000, you have a $30,000 a year lifestyle. You 3,000 a year. That's $27,000. Sprinkle a little interest on that, and you're at $30,000. 9 years at 10%, and you've covered 1 year of living expenses. The math is sound on this. But let's look at different scenarios because it's not about what the interest rates look like. It's about uh, how much you're putting into your investment opportunities at the interest that you're looking at. Michael says 45,000 plus interest. You're broke. You broke as fuck. 45,000 plus interest. You're wondering what you've been doing for the past 10 years. But if you save 25% of your income, it takes you 3 years of work for 1 year of expenses. Yeah, 3 years of work for 1 year of expenses. But look what happens when you get serious. If you save 50%, you work for 1 year to save for 1 year of expenses. Because if you're living at 25,000 a year and you're putting away 25,000 a year, you effectively have saved next year's cost of living. Your work to freedom ratio is 1 to 1. If you're living at 25,000 a year on a $50,000 a year salary for 10 years, you have effectively put away 10 years worth of retirement money. If you did that for 40 years, you would be putting away 40 years more worth of retirement money. That's not retiring early, but that is guaranteeing you a legitimate retirement opportunity if you're not tapping into those savings and investment opportunities for minor emergencies. And if you can push it to 75%, and many do, if you did, you work for just 1 year and save for 3 years. Because if you're living at $30,000 a year, the other 75,000 a year that you don't need would be going towards covering a standard of living of $30,000 a year for 3 more years. And in that scenario, if you work 10 years, you would have effectively saved 30 years worth of income. If you would have worked 15 years, you would have accumulated approximately 45 years worth of income, which would put you in a position where 15 years of 75% of your income being saved and invested would lead you to say, fuck this job at 30 and have 45 years of this ain't going to be a problem, which would put you at about 85 if you make it that far. Michael says $4,016 in gold, which is better than it was with the other day because gold was going down. Gold was like 3,700, and now gold is starting to go back up due to the stock market crash. He said silver is 49.87 per ounce. That's pretty straight. See, this is why y'all gotta like and subscribe when y'all come to the channel because we got a lot of stuff that we got to talk going on here. But suddenly, when you listen to these numbers, a 40-year career shrinks to a 10-year sprint. This is the accelerator. And while everything else and everybody's working with different other strategies and plans, and they're trying to squeeze out 8% return instead of a 7% return, you're fundamentally changing the timeline of your life because you are now expressly emphasizing larger capital inputs so that whatever your percentage rate is, whether it's a 7% rate or a 20% rate, the fact is the larger the principal, the larger the gains. Yeah, the larger the interest rates, the larger the dividend profits, but the larger the principal, the larger the gains. So getting a high savings rate requires a huge psychological shift. You have to go from being a consumer to being an owner. Every dollar you earn is an employee. You can either send it out to buy you a fleet of meaningless pleasures, fancy coffee, new phone, new gadget, trinkets that you can worship over for a short period of time and then lose interest on, or you can send it to your investment army where it will work for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making more dollar employees. This isn't about being miserable or living a very shitty life in order to have the life of luxury as you get older. It's about intentional spending. It's about consciously deciding what actually brings you joy and ruthlessly cutting out the rest. It asks yourself, first question on the table: is this purchase worth the hours of my life I traded for the money to buy it? And when you frame it like that, mindless spending lost its appeal completely. If you are thinking about buying something just for the sake of having it, and then you ask yourself that question: is it worth the number of hours I out of my life I traded for the money to buy this? More often than not, as an adult, you're going to say no. Impulse buying as a children, probably going to say yes. If it isn't your life that was sacrificed to get that money, you're going to say hell yes. Think about that, ladies, as y'all make it make sense. Like and subscribe as we go through this, guys, because we're about to get into some deep stuff. Let's look at a quick example. Now, Michael, we're about to talk about a Mark and a Sarah. They're going to be a couple, both of them in their 30s, with a combined income of $150,000. Now, these are the type of examples that I talked to y'all about, which $150,000 could be she's making 100,000, he's making 50. She could be making closer to 80,000. He could be making 70,000. He could be making 100,000. She could be making 50,000. One of them could be making the whole 150,000. The other one could be a stay-at-home parent. Doesn't matter. The following of traditional advice would say that they would save 15% or $22,500 per year. I don't know where the fuck the rest of the money is going, but if they're on track to retire in their mid 60s, the slow path would be what they would be on. From 30 to 60, putting away 22,500 a year. But then they would discover the fire mindset. They track their spending and realize that they're burning thousands on lunches out, subscriptions they don't use, and a second car that they barely drive and still pay notes on with high insurance rates on it. They make a radical change. They start meal prepping, cancel the subscriptions that they don't need or use, sell the second car if they don't lease it out for rental income, downsize their apartment from an overly sized one just in case people want to come over to visit to one that's just for the two of them. With these intentional choices, they slash their annual spending from $127,500 down to $75,000. Suddenly, their savings rates explodes from 15% to 50%, where you don't have to live broke to do this. You just have to not be wasteful to do this better. Since they are now saving $75,000 a year, the math of their future is completely rewritten. Instead of a 40-year slog, they're on a path of financial independence in about 17 years. And you think 17 years, that's a long ass time. It's full time fucking job. It's early retirement though. because they could be free from 30 to 47, nearly 2 decades early, because it's a 17-year track. They got together in their 30s, they started doing this. By 17, they're done. If you're in your 40s right now and you start doing this, by the time you're in your 60s, you're done. Not because they got a huge raise, but because they took control of their spending and weaponized their savings rates. This is the power of the fire mindset. It's the engine of early retirement. If you, for some reason, are bringing in $6,000 a month and you're only spending $2,000 of it a month, and you're putting the rest of it away, 15 years of that you don't need for nothing else. If you quit your most taxing jobs and then fall back on something to keep you occupied, you would still be generating a little bit of revenue, but the remainder of your money would be coming in from all of your savings. It's the engine of early retirement. It provides the fuel, which is the capital, that you're going to need for the next two pillars. We just talked about pillar one, and this is the real wealth accelerator. Now, once you've adopted the fire mindset and your savings is starting to become serious chunks of your income, the question is, where do you put that money to work? The old playbook says shove everything into the stock market, shove it under a mattress. But the wealthy have always understood the power of a different asset class, income producing real estate, like we talk about on a regular basis. This is the second pillar. You can still get your stock portfolio, but you can also leverage it to get an income producing real estate. It's a primary engine of wealth for many early retirees. And to be clear, we're not talking about a house that you live in. Your house is a liability. It costs you money every month. We're talking about investment properties, assets that put money into your pocket. Real estate is unique because it builds wealth in four different ways at the same time. Cash flow. This is the profits that you have left from rent after paying the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and setting aside money for repairs. This is pure passive or primarily residual income. Appreciation. This is the increase in the property's value over time. While not guaranteed, real estate in many desirable areas has historically outpaced inflation. Loan paydowns, a, amortization. This is the hidden gem. Every month, your tenant pays you rent, and you use a piece of it to pay down your mortgage on your house. You're using someone else's money to build your equity. And tax benefits, because the tax code loves real estate investors. You can deduct expenses like mortgage interest and property taxes. The biggest benefit is depreciation. You get to deduct a portion of the property's value each year for wear and tear, even if the property is actually going up in value. For most people, this depreciation can create a phantom loss that shelters your cash flow from taxes. Now, that sheltering your active income from your day job with these losses is generally reserved for those who qualify as real estate professionals under IRS rules. So combine these four and you're going to see the power. But the secret sauce that makes it all work is leveraging. Leverage means using borrowed money to amplify your return. You can buy a $300,000 property with just a 20% down payment or $60,000. So you control a $300,000 asset with $60,000 of your own cash. If that property appreciates by just 5% in 1 year, which is $15,000, your cash on cash return from an appreciation alone is 25%, $15,000 return on a $60,000 investment. The kind of stable leverage that you get in real estate is hard to replicate safely in the stock market because we take a bunch of risk and we see how much money we get back on that. But I'm not a millionaire. You're probably thinking. Me and Michael tell you every day, we stay broke. How do you buy investment properties? This is where the wealthy use creative strategies that almost anyone can access. One of the most popular is house hacking. You buy a small multifamily property like a duplex or a triplex, live in one unit, and rent out the others, like I told you guys earlier. In many cases, the rent from your tenants can cover your entire mortgage. You're essentially living for free, wiping out your single biggest monthly expense, which is your standard of living. This turbocharges your savings rates and lets you save for the next property in a fraction of the time. And if you're still working another legitimate job on top of that, you're making money a whole lot faster. So for those who want to benefit without the headaches, there are other options like real estate investment trusts. Unless you buy shares in a portfolio of properties like a mutual fund. Another strategy of growing in popularity is real estate syndicates. In a syndicate, you pool your money with other investors to buy a huge asset that you can't afford alone, like a 100-unit apartment building. An experienced operator finds the deal and manages it. You just invest your capital and collect your share of the cash flow and the profits. It gives you access to professional grade deals without dealing with tenants, toilets, or termites. Let's look at David, a 28-year-old software engineer. He got the fire mindset, saved 50,000. Instead of buying a fancy car, he used it as a down payment on a $250,000 duplex. He lives in one unit, rents out the other for $1,200 a month. His total mortgage is $1,600 a month. The rent from his tenant cuts his personal costs to just $400 a month because his living costs are so low. He saved for his next property in just 2 years. By 35, he owns a small portfolio of rentals, generating enough passive income to cover his bills. He's achieved financial independence through a disciplined, systemic process. He built his own wealth engine, and now he can take the difference and start throwing it into the stock market and building up even more wealth interest. And we've just covered two massive pillars: changing your mindset to weaponize your savings rate and using real estate as a wealth building engine. Now, if you're starting to see that the traditional path isn't the only one and you're ready to start building a system that actually works, then take the time while we're talking about this and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and mash those reaction buttons. because we're going to be giving you a lot more videos like this that break down the exact strategies the wealthy use to build financial freedom. And you won't want to miss the next one that we talk about. Now, the third and final pillar is what really separates the sophisticated investor from the amateur. Once you have a high savings rate, and think about this now, it is a high savings rate, not a high interest savings account or a high interest savings rate. We're talking about the rate that you save your money. The rate that you do not spend your money is high. And you have an engine like real estate building your wealth. The next step is to diversify into assets that operate outside the stocks and bonds markets. This is how the wealthy create resilient, truly passive income streams that have a lower correlation to public market volatility. Welcome to the world of alternative investments, specifically the world of private credit or private lending. What does it mean? In a simple term, you become the bank. Now, think about a real estate flipper. They need a short term cash to buy and renovate a property. Banks are often too slow and bureaucratic for these deals, so they turn to private individuals for loans. As a private lender, you provide that loan. In return, you get interest, typically high single digits or even low double digits, plus fees. Your investment is secured by the property itself. If the borrower defaults, you have a legal claim to the property. You can foreclose and sell it to get your money back. The wealthy have used this strategy for generations. It offers powerful advantages. You can actually take advantage of this style of situation by diving into tax liens. I told you this before. Getting in contact with property owners that don't want to lose their house, offer to pay a percentage of or offer to pay the taxes that they have not been paying in exchange for a percentage back with interest. You get into a contract with them, put a lien against the house for the value of the money that you lent to them, and now you're drawing back money with interest. If you find the right payment option with the right interest rate, by the time they finish paying you back, you have made a substantial profit off of the loan. And if they default, the amount of money that you lent them is far less than the value of the house and the cost of court. And if you foreclosed on the house, you would get more money than what you put into that house. Trying to tell y'all, the wealthy have used these strategies for generations. It's going to be offering guys very powerful advantages. High predictable returns. Unlike the stock market, a private loan has a fixed interest rate. You know exactly what your return should be, and it's often much higher than what can be get received or acquired from a bond. Specifically, because you, as a private lender, are lending to an individual that is reasonably a high risk or highly impatient borrower who doesn't want to meet the red tape of the bank or doesn't have the capabilities to meet the red tape of the bank, but they believe that they have a surefire deal. You can have higher than market average interest rates within the confines of the law with higher than average monthly payments. Get your money back quickly before the deal sours. Passive income. Once you've made the loan, your job is done. You just collect interest checks. It's a mailbox money in the purest form. And I don't know if y'all know this, Michael knows about this. Back in the day, mailbox money is when you set something up and people are just mailing you checks. Modern day times, it would be called direct deposit, automatic direct deposits. And that's a good way to go. Capital preservation, because your loan is backed by a hard asset, which is the real estate. Your principal is protected. Prudent lenders only lend up to about 70 to 75% of the property's value, sometimes around 60 to 65%, just to take into account the depreciation of the value of the property during high value market industries like we're experiencing right now, creating a built in equity cushion. If you're only lending for 75% of the value or 65% of the value, if you sold it, you have the opportunity to make about 30% back on the sale, or short selling it and still making 20%, even if you sold it at a 10 to 15% discount. Low correlations to the public markets. We mentioned that a moment ago. This is key. When the stock market crashes, your private loan portfolio can remain stable. The borrower still owes you interest no matter what the S&P 500 did that day. This provides stability and peace of mind. In addition to that, individuals that work for the government that can't afford to pay, you've got interest and late fees, which is an additional cost to the same contract. In the past, private lending was a relationship game for the country club crowd. But today, technology has opened it up. Online platforms and specialized funds now allow accredited investors to get into these deals. Some platforms even crowdfund loans, allowing small investors to get involved. And crowdfund loans is when a platform reaches out to the community to get small time investors to meet the demand of a crowd of borrowers with little to no effort in the exchange, where the lender can select their rates and the borrower makes the payments. And the platform gets a percentage of the interaction between one another. Beyond private credit, the wealthy diversify into other alternatives. They invest in private equity, buying into promising companies before they go public. They invest in infrastructure, farmland, or timber, tangible assets that produce real value and hedge it against inflation. The common thread is this: they are moving beyond paper assets and investing in businesses and opportunities with low correlation to the broader economy. They are diversifying their income streams so that no single marked downturn can destroy their financial freedom. So let's do one last example. Let's talk about Susan, 55 years old executive. She has $1.5 million in her 401k, but she's terrified to retire after watching her portfolio drop 30% in the last crash. She learns about private credit and decides to allocate 500,000 to a diversified fund that lends to real estate developers. The fund targets a 9% annual return. That's a $500,000 input that now generates a $45,000 a year return, or a $3,750 a month paycheck. In predictable income, that's a fantastic rollout. This income isn't tied to stock market swings. It covers her core living expenses. This changes everything for her. So she can now let her remaining $1 million in stocks grow for the long term, knowing her essential needs are met. She doesn't have to sell stocks in a down market to pay her bills. One of the biggest risks for retirees is being forced to sell low because they need the money right now. She's building financial firewalls, giving her the confidence to finally retire and sleep soundly. Now, we've covered a lot of ground. We started by exposing the outdated retirement playbook, the slow, uncertain path of the three times salary rule and the 4% rule. It's a system designed for a world that doesn't exist anymore. You might as well turn that into an 8% rule and a 10 times out the gate percent rule. If you're trying to do a broad spectrum, doesn't go for everybody, but everybody's trying to fit it level. Then we revealed the three pillars. The wealthy are using these pillars to build real financial freedom decades sooner than the average person. Now, let's go over those pillars real quick. Pillar number one, the fire mindset. And this is going to be the foundation, the core of your process. It's about shifting your focus from rate to return, from rate of return to savings rate. So you're shifting from focusing on the rate of return, which is the amount of money you get back on your investment, to savings rate, which is the frequency in which you increase your principal investment. And then seeing every dollar as a tool to buy back your time. Pillar number two was going to be real estate leverage. This is going to be the engine. It's about using income producing properties to generate wealth in four ways at once: cash flow, appreciation, loan pay down, and tax benefits. Pillar number three is going to be private lending and alternatives. This is the diversifier. It's about becoming the bank, creating streamlines of high yield passive income that are less tied to stock market volatility. Financial freedom is about having $1 billion. I mean, it'd be nice to have, but that's not what financial freedom is about. It's not about luck either. It's about owning your time. It's about having the power to choose how you spend your day and what work you do. If you work at all, the freedom isn't achieved by passively following old advice and hoping for the best. It's achieved by deliberately and systematically building a machine that generates income for you. It starts by rejecting the slow path. The information is out there. The strategies are proven. The only question left is, will you use them? Because we also have, I told you guys before, another alternative option that could aid you in your ability to expedite your wealth growth is um, legal fees, lending to legal cases. Whether you're lending to car crashes that pay out regularly on a swift basis, or if you're leveraging more expensive legal actions. Now, investing in legal firms is a highly volatile scenario because if the person you invested in loses the case, then you lose your money. But if they settle it all in the case, you're getting yours after the attorney gets theirs. And every time you do that, you get your money back off of the fold. If you were to take 50 grand out of your savings and put it towards leveraging that type of $5,000 per car crash, you could put out for 10 car crashes and get back your percentage yield. If you charge 10%, where you put up 5,000, you get back 5,500. Or if you put out 5,000, you got back 20%. Where you put out 5,000, get back 7,000. If you did that 10 times, you put up 50 grand and got back 70 grand, which gives you the ability to expand the number of people you can lend to. You got to think about other ways to make money for you faster. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to abandon the idea of having a stock portfolio. You should still try to maintain a core satellite stock portfolio. Then take some of your dividends and switch it out to gold and silver. Then take some of your dividends and switch it out to Bitcoin. Then take some of your dividends and switch it out to real estate. Then take some of your dividends and switch it out to lending options, where your entire portfolio is the quantity of money that you're not spending so that it can potentially turn you a profit. Your portfolio isn't just stocks and bonds. It's everything that your money holds and everything that holds your money that you're not spending money on. Now that you've got new knowledge, now that you've got a different way to go about getting things done, the bigger picture now is, should I waste money on that one thing that I was thinking about getting, or should I put more of my money away to make myself more successful? If your answer was the latter, you're more likely to make it to your retirement option than the former. So, with that being said, I'm going to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. And fellas, I give you guys this information to aid you in becoming higher value men. So, if you take this information and use it, you will find yourself in a position where you will be able to improve your financial capabilities, which gives you the ability to benefit in your personal life. And if you apply the other information that I give you in your personal life so that you're not making costly financial decisions, meaning that the choices that you made ended up costing you money, then you don't have to put so much financial pressure on making money. They play off of one another. Ladies, this information isn't exclusive to the fellas. Even though we are 61% male driven podcast from the male's perspective, this information can aid you ladies in becoming higher value women. If you're able to find a partner that has the same mentality and drive as you do, you can then proactively grow faster with less stress. I give you guys enough information to make the changes in your life that you need to make so that you are no longer dissatisfied with your lives. There is never a situation where whatever's going on that is inside of your control that you can't make changes. You just got to find another way. There is always another way. And here on This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, the first thing we do is talk about another way. And we make sure that we do this 7 nights a week. And we do not let the sun rise without going live. So we make sure that we remind you that you should be trying to make your later greater every day of the week. All right. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. It used to change. That's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.